All right, welcome back everybody to another episode of the Hunting Beast Report. I am your host Scott Biskobing, and I am joined by the Hunting Beast himself, as always, Mr. Dan Infault. Dan, how are we doing today?
I'm alive. How you doing?
Just before you said you were doing good, you were able to catch a 45-minute nap, and that was the most sleep you've gotten in some time.
It is. I'm starting to feel awake again.
Yeah, well, you've been busy. The season started, but you kicked off the whitetail season even a little early by getting out on a bear hunt. And for those of you who are close followers of the page, you should by now have seen the video that Dan posted. What was that, yesterday or the day before now?
Yesterday.
Yesterday, that's what I thought. So if you haven't seen it yet, go and check that out. A lot of interesting stuff. Anything exciting happen on that trip, Dan? Or do you just want people to check out the video?
But there's a little bit of excitement.
Yeah.
Mostly like everything that happened on the whole trip that wasn't boring was centered around Ricky. And that's always a good video when that's the case.
Right. Yeah, it was pretty good. I was watching it last night, and you guys are going to want to definitely check it out. Yeah, Justin Tanner says Ricky Unhinged. I think that is the way you titled it.
Yep, Ricky Unhinged.
So, we were able to sneak in an episode here tonight because we're in the middle of it. I mean, I was hunting this last weekend, fighting mosquitoes in the heat, but for me, it was a good weekend out there. A couple potential shooters. I know I got a few other bucks in the area that I'm kind of hanging on to see. It was a little too early to take what I saw this weekend, but I'm very excited about the potential for this upcoming archery season. So Dan was nice enough to skip the woods tonight and maybe recover from the mosquitoes trying to carry him away. You said it was pretty bad last night, right?
Yeah, it was. They ate right through my bug spray. I mean, it was so bad. The good part was I didn't have to climb down out of that nasty tree I got into when I was done hunting because I could just step off onto the carcass pile of mosquitoes.
Perfect. So on top of that, our guest also took a night off from hunting to join us. And as you guys know, we're bringing on Jacob Sklenar. Jacob, how's it going?
Oh, it's great.
Jacob.
It's great. I'm alive, as Dan would say.
Right.
And I have a lot less mosquitoes biting me today rather than yesterday. So. Yeah.
Most of you guys are familiar with Jacob. You've been a member of the Beast Forum for a while now. How long has that been for you? I know you're a young man, but
yeah, I don't know. It has to have been like 10, 12 years for me, which in the scope of my life is a decent chunk of my life. I know it's a drop in the bucket for most season hunters, but yeah, I mean, I kind of grew up on Dan's stuff. I grew up on. And we watched like a little bit of like the monster bucks and whatnot, but the first things that we put in when we were about to go into hunting season was we did the review of all of the different hill country Blood Brothers videos and all the marsh hunting and stuff like that, and then quickly upgraded to the Hunting Beast ones, when they came out. So
I just want to point out here real quick that Zeke Outdoors and Stan P are all talking about my hair. So I don't know why you guys are so obsessed with my hair, but wait, maybe they're talking about Jacob. That is a good. Hey, when I was 26 years old, I had a little bit more hair than this.
It'll fall away as I start worrying about bucks more. I'm not too.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that can cause you to lose your hair. That's for sure, especially when it comes to the deer wood. So
I believe you're newly married too, aren't you?
Yeah. I got married in July. Actually, my hunt last night was with my wife, and she, for the first time this year, actually wants to be the one behind the bow. So she's put me in the back seat. Thank you. She's put me in the back seat. She's put me on camera duty, and nice. Yeah, man, it's been awesome. Dan, I actually got a lot of really good advice from you on that, and I have a video coming out Thursday about a hunt with her. But Dan, you gave me a lot of really good advice when I was coming up. About not pressuring her to get into any aspect of it, but being passionate myself and seeing her kind of take to the things that she enjoyed. Thanks, Slugworth. And yeah, that was really good advice, because that's gotten her now into the bee stand with a bow in her hand. So
Nice.
we're very thankful.
Got another question
Oh
here.
God,
When's the baby?
I
want
don't
to be
know.
an
I
uncle,
don't know,
Jacob.
James. I mean, we might have to name the baby after Zeke. That would be great to me, but I don't think Caitlin would allow me to do that. I think she's going to come up with something really creative or whatnot. I'm just hoping I can subtly sneak in like a hunting term. Like, I don't think thermal is a good word for a baby, but we're gonna do something like river, creek, or something like that.
There you go. Thermal. That'd be something. Poor kid.
Be one of a kind.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Beast Sklenar.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Oh, good stuff. Well, congratulations on getting married. And yeah, those questions, when's the baby? I can tell you firsthand, that you're going to get a lot of that if you haven't already. That comes pretty quickly. So, all right. Well, the topic of the show here tonight is I see you, Jacob, caught a poacher. And
Yeah.
I don't know, have you talked about this yet, or is this going to be kind of the first kind of real big go around on this?
You know, I think I've talked about it a little bit, just when people ask me how my season went last year. And you guys will hear as we talk about this story, this had a huge implication on the pressure in that area, particularly the nature of the pressure was coming from the investigation. So it was a necessary topic to talk about, that pressure that eventually led to the shift of the deer that I was after, and then he ended up getting killed after he shifted to that new range. So that was it was very impactful, but I didn't go into detail about all the things that we're going to go through today, with the timeline of him going up a certain axis and all these other things that we could kind of dissect the story from.
Sure.
You talked to me quite a bit right when it happened.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was and I remember I wanted to get you on right away and talk about this, but I think the main reason you've been quiet is because there's been an ongoing investigation.
You're 100% right. Yep. I was working with several of the Wisconsin DNR on this case. The police actually got involved for a reason we'll talk about in the story. And it was they warned me right away, like, hey, guys that aren't charged yet or haven't been issued citations will happen to, especially on big charges, will happen to lose all their hunting gear, or happen to have just listed it on Marketplace. You know, like there was that hunter in Colorado recently. Some people are calling him an influencer. I have no clue who he is, but he got some amount of charges for shooting a wolf in one county and claiming it in another, or something like that. And some other things. And before those things got released, he sold all of his hunting gear. So it was going to get confiscated as part of his charges, and he just turned it into a profit for himself, you know, and kind of vanished. So they warn you, like, let this stuff process. You know, he can start to erase some of the evidence that might be lingering. He might be getting rid of some stuff that are part of his penalty. So, you know, just kind of let it take its course. And, you know, there's a lot of details that make this kind of open and shut, in my opinion. But it took a while to process, and that's probably because so many other things are going on all the time with the DNR. You know.
Right. Yeah. They got their hands on a lot of stuff.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's go ahead. Jacob was nice enough. He's got a kind of like PowerPoint here that he put together, and which is actually going to really be helpful here in telling the story. I'm going to preface this by saying, however, that there are photos in here, and you're going to be really surprised what this guy looks like. We'll just go with that. So, all right. Here we go. The poacher timeline breakdown. We'll start with the first photo here, and the suspect. I mean, he looks crazy, and he looks like he might be realizing he got busted here. But no, in all honesty, guys, so we're covering his face because there's charges, right? And tickets issued. But in case this ends up going to court or anything like that, and just out of respect, and we're not trying to defend this person. We're not trying to defend poachers in any way, shape, or form. But just for legal reasons, we're just covering his face. If you want to find out more, I'm sure at some point you'll be able to find out who this person is. But that's not for us. We're here to tell the story and for Jacob to tell the story. So
he could actually be found innocent if he fights that and gets a right lawyer or something. So you can't
right,
show his case until he is actually convicted guilty. But he
correct.
does have a really resembling look to Scott. I mean, the eyes, the bald head, the coloration, looks like Scott.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's me. It's totally me.
Oh man,
All
Scott
right, Jake.
probably would have shot a bigger deer than this one, anyways. So
Yeah, well, I don't know. You see what's behind me.
yeah. Full disclosure too. A lot of people are familiar with this property. I'm sure Dan is too. There's a ton of people that hunt this property. It's very heavily pressured. I don't want people thinking I got 100 cell cams out here or SD cams or whatever, because these pictures are from both. But basically, the day I was called, or the day I found this out, it became an investigation as a community of hunters. And then I kind of found out that there's a damn cell camera every 10 feet on this property. So a lot of people sent me different video of this deer. Some of my friends did. There's a lot of different pictures of it. I'm sure, Dan, I'm sure you probably got to send a picture of this deer at some point,
Yeah.
in its life, because it was around
Here's
10,
pretty
11.
well known.
Yeah, we always used to joke that it was the only deer on this property that was going to survive old age and like die of actual natural causes, because you couldn't legally shoot them, because every other deer is just getting shot. But yeah, it wasn't the case, unfortunately. So this is our victim here. Yeah, but that middle one is actually a clipping from a video from a friend of mine. So that's not my video from the stand. But yeah, this deer was, I mean, he moved quite a bit. And, just between the picture on the left and the right, there's almost a half mile of distance. And that's on the same day that he died. So he moves quite a bit. He actually visited, I think he made a triangle on the property that day. We kind of dissected, post-mortem. And I think he made a triangle that covered, I mean, it was November 7th, but he covered well over 3 miles that day, which was, for some reason, I got to think that him not being actively hunted as much as other bucks on this property because he's albino might have played a factor, but that's
Sure.
really rare for like a 9-10-year-old deer. I know in the past people said that this deer was like a 160, but you can see from that little snippet from the video in the center that he's got a really wide spread. Well, if you just imagine him as a mainframe 10 with some extra stuff around the bases and much, much taller, that's kind of what he looked like in his prime. I've been told.
Sure. And obviously a very well-known buck in the area. I mean, it's pretty hard for an albino, especially a buck or an albino period, for people to not know about it. It's just, people find out and then they kind of flock to that. They want to get pictures. They want to have sightings, things like that. And that was pretty much the thing with this buck too, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, you probably have seen this deer or heard about it or all sorts
Yeah,
of stuff.
I don't think there was a big flock of people searching for it. It was in a pretty remote area. As far as there's not a lot of fields around and stuff, but mostly the hunters that hunted there a lot knew about it.
Sure.
For
Okay.
sure. Yep. That's a good way to put it.
All right. Do you want me to flip to the next screen here?
Yeah, go ahead.
And let's get into it here, huh?
Yeah. So this is the day before the incident. So I was hunting a spot. I was in kind of an observation style sit, so I could see a lot of area, which is very rare when you're hunting marshes to be able to see very far. But the goal was relocating a deer that was starting to move, and I was pretty confident that I was in the area that he had moved to. So yeah, this is 11/6. This is November 6th, and I saw him walking up and captured a video of him from my stand. These are just 2 snippets from the video, but I've got about 8 minutes of video of him walking, and pretty dead silent wind, and I'm whistling at him and stuff, and that marsh grass is loud. He can't hear me at all, and whistling and waving from a big old tree, and he doesn't make me out, and he just keeps walking with his wind blowing immediately into this bedding area. And he basically, the way he accessed was around, I want to say 8 a.m. when he got up to the point where I was at. He had walked through a giant portion of the main bedding areas on this property just to get where he's at, with his wind continually blowing into that bedding, just to get on the other end of the property, which put a pretty big damper in my hunt. But some things that we can note just from these pictures. Again, his face is censored, but he has a headlamp on his forehead without a hat, which is kind of weird for a lot of people. It's daylight and he still has his headlamp on, which is weird for most people. He's got glasses on in every photo we've had of him. We're not pointing out the crossbow to discriminate against crossbows, but he's very clearly holding that same weapon later on as well. He's got 2 green fletched crossbow bolts. You can see in the left picture that there's 2 a little bit more clearly than the right. But again, the video shows it really clearly. And his access route is documented. So I can see him for about a half mile where he's walking here, maybe a little bit less. And through other pictures that we have in the coming slides, we actually document over a mile worth of access of this person and can stitch the dots between and kind of draw a line to the way he went. And I filmed right where he ended up entering hardwoods, where I assume he meant to hang his stand. And so then you can see he's somewhat emo as well. We've identified that as a trait with this habit. So this is still that same.
It's not me.
I think he's pissed off because he just walked so far, right. But I'm sure I look like that at times. But so the same day, you can see even clearer. He's got those 2. He's got those 2 crossbow bolts in the back. Same crossbow mounted to the back. I gotta say, he's got a pretty slick system because he's carrying a stand, sticks, a crossbow, bolts, and everything, and he still has 2 free hands. So I'm a little jealous there. But
yeah,
he was walking with his phone. He tends to walk with his phone out. It seemed like in almost every picture he's got his phone out, even in the dark. But this is him on the far right side. This is from other people's cameras, but all these photos, him walking up this access, and then it took him a long time to get to me, understandably so, because it's some rough country. And then he gets to me, and then afterward, I watch him disappear into the island, and my friend sent me a picture of him right as he got into this landmass and was like, "Hey, did you just see this idiot?" And I was like, "Sure did." He walked right past me. And so, there's 2 different people sell cameras. He's got the same attire, same headlamp, bare face, crossbow bolts, same face. He's got glasses on. And most importantly, knowing all of the cars that are in the lot at this time, he's the only person that we do not personally know that's on this property right now. So, and to be clear, there were 5-6 guys hunting the property, not including him on that day. But a lot of the times, like Dan alluded to, there's a lot of hardcore people that hunt this. So just by proxy of trying not to get in each other's way, or, sometimes it's nice to know the name of the guy that's hunting near you, just so that, okay, I know you, I know your truck, I know you like to hunt this area. I don't want to have to shift to a whole nother property when I've only got an hour to get in and get a hunt in. I'm just going to avoid the area you typically go. And it's kind of like you can be like that, and you can just go wherever you want, but sometimes it helps, everyone get a better hunt in these higher pressure properties where you just don't have a choice. You got a couple hours at the end of your day and you got to make the most of it. So
I would add too that knowing that property, there's very limited access to it, even though it's a big property. Mm-hmm. So everybody's parked where you're parked.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's something we've even lobbied for, is to get more than just that lot there, but it's really restricting. So it makes sense to coordinate with people just a little bit. You don't give away what you're doing necessarily or your spot necessarily, but just enough that you aren't screwing each other up,
So you did see a vehicle there that you didn't recognize, or that was somebody you didn't know who that was. Is that right?
So yeah, he ended up getting in after me. But another person that we'll mention later in this story is Wyatt Barber of Trophy Deer Recovery. So they have a deer recovery business with drones. Mm-hmm. And so he was already tagged out. So often he's driving around all these public lands, picking up calls, especially in November. It's a good way to help some other hunters out and be a little bit of a source of income for them. And so, if we see something sketchy or whatever, he's usually driving past the lots already to get to his next call. And he just affirmed who was there and who wasn't. And, okay. We were already actively messaging some of the people that were already there, saying like, hey, I'm out here today. I'm going to go around here. What are you thinking? And stuff like that. Cause we're, it's not like these are strangers, these are friends, so,
yeah.
But yeah, he affirmed kind of who was in the lot and who wasn't.
Gotcha. All right. Well, let's move on to, again, this was the day before, correct? This is some more photos.
Yep. So still the day before. So after my friend got pictures of him entering the landmass, they got pictures of him entering, which was that really close up ones with the emo pictures as you saw, and then this was kind of funny. You can see him in daylight on the bottom picture, just in the corner of this camera here, and then I forgot to include this in the slide, but right before this camera, which was someone else's camera, I had an SD camera, and I went to pick it up this last season, and it was stolen. And I went to pick it up on like the 11th of November. So I wouldn't be surprised if this guy ended up taking it on his way through, because he would have had to cross there to get to this camera.
Sure.
But then you can see him after dark. He kind of paced back and forth 5 or 6 times there with his phone out. I don't think he really knew where he was going. He's got the headlamp on and a hand light. So I don't think he shot something there. It certainly looks like he could be tracking if he's going back and forth with a hand light as well. But I know he didn't end up walking out with anything. So, and it kind of looks, I will mention that in that top picture, if you zoomed in on it or we had it blown up, it kind of looks like a rifle, and it's just a larger scope on it, because you can kind of see that line of his stand meets the stock. But I had to take a really good look at it when I first saw that picture, because I was like, oh my gosh, did this guy bring a rifle in? And I didn't know, but I guess it's not. It's literally just his bow there.
Sure.
You know what I noticed from one of the pictures? That stand he had looked like a beast stand.
I know.
Yeah,
I didn't want to
mention in the comments here.
I zoomed in on the video too, and I was like, "Oh, Dan's not gonna want to see this." Hey, he's awfully mobile. I gotta say, he's awfully mobile, and he killed a buck. He killed an old, mature buck on this. So maybe the beast stand's the way to go. And he ended up killing it, I think, while he was walking around too. So I will say it looked like it packed up well. But yeah, as unfortunate scenarios, there's good and bad apples in every bunch.
Sure. All right, so let's move on then to the day of the incident.
Yeah, so this is the day of, and this is just kind of showing the different areas that this deer is. So these pictures are very far apart. The picture in the right, you can actually get a feel for how wide this deer was at some point in its life. Like that was truthfully a very big deer. And really how far downhill he's gone. You know, you can, when you start to get the rack like deteriorating from the top down, you know that they're a very, very old deer. But it's kind of amazing. A lot of people talk about older bucks being really habitual. You know, you talk to a lot of guys in you know, this is not to pick on anyone, but in large big woods sections and stuff like that, they find the honey hole that the old buck has lived in and he feels really secure about, and he sticks around there. And it's funny because the really old deer I have experience with on this property, which albeit is not a ton of years of experience, have been extremely mobile. And I think it's that when the deer do the same thing year to year, as a lot of us talk about, or the deer do the same thing day to day, as you can see, they're getting picked up on trail camera a lot, and people are going right to those trail cameras and trying to hunt them. And we're finding that they get killed, you know? And so it's interesting that what I've observed is that the deer that survive tend to do something like Dan, you preach, that is not the norm, you know? So we would not think it's the norm for a very old deer to be very mobile. But it was very interesting to see this albino and several other, you know, natural colored deer kind of do the same thing. But yeah, I thought it was very interesting.
The hunting pressure is going to force them into doing some sort of habit, whether it's going to an area that nobody goes to and holing up, like that's what a lot of old bucks do. You can find that area. Sometimes it's not on the public property. But if people are everywhere spread out, that buck's got to spread out like that too, or he wouldn't live to be old. So, you know, it's really a matter of reading the property, which you seem to be doing very well. I think that system you have with your friends, it's not something I usually do. I'm usually really quiet, you know, and I don't say anything to anybody. I just hi at the parking lot and go about my way and try not to get noticed. Where I notice you're real friendly with everybody, and it actually works well for you because I know some of your friends, and it's like a network. You all work together and know everything that's going on, and like a team event when one person gets the buck, you know. But kind of interesting
Sometimes
how
it sucks.
you get more knowledge out of that too with all the cameras and stuff. I'm sure it's a headache every now and then, though.
Oh yeah, and really, it's not like we don't really like share trail camera pictures or something like that. You know, we're not like So sometimes it really sucks, and I have some videos coming out this year that basically show the story of my year, and it takes you through the highlights of hunts, and it fills in the context in between, so that you're not just watching me talk on camera, because I don't have as pretty of a face as Dan. But like I don't know, I don't want to see myself just narrate you through my season, so I bring you on some of my really good hunts, and I fill in the gaps for you so that you're in context, and then you get to be entertained by the hunt. And so you'll hear throughout the videos that there was two guys that I'm pretty good friends with that we kind of had a deer that we were chasing that was a really nice deer, and we just wanted to confirm whether he was alive or not, because someone had said that there's a good chance he's dead already. And so we kind of made a pact to say, yeah, that whenever someone gets the first picture of this deer, all you got to do is say, hey, I got him, he's alive. Doesn't matter where he is, you don't got to show us the picture. You know, you don't ever got to show us anything again or say anything again about him. You don't got to tell us where you're hunting or anything like that. But just say he's alive, you know, just so that we know that we're not all collectively chasing a ghost here. And we had a friend that was a part of that and was out of state for the week, and ended up getting him on camera all week and just not saying anything about it because he was trying to hide that deer was alive. And eventually I ended up getting a picture of him, and I was like, guys, hate to be the first one to get the picture and have to say this, but you know, he's alive. Go out there, someone go get him. You know, I'd rather it be one of us than someone random, you know. But then I got a message back like, yeah, I know he's alive. I had him on camera all week. And so sometimes it bites you in the ass where you think that deer's dead, and you kind of lay off the gas on him, and the lack of information is some misinformation. But yeah, I mean, that's really how it is, and we don't really share much with each other besides that. But it's more just like, hey, if you shoot one, I'm there for you. You know, like I'll come help you drag out at a moment's notice, and that's mostly what it is.
Very cool. Dan, real quick, we had a question here. Somebody had asked about. I thought you could not, or that you could hunt albino in Wisconsin, and that you have one, and as well as Dave. Do you want to fill them in on the story with that, or that short snippet of time?
I'm a poacher, but I get away with it. No, there was a short period of time when CWD first came to Wisconsin where they opened up albino deer in Wisconsin. Scott Walker opened it up. And in that time period, I shot one albino doe. I shot over another one's back, and I almost shot a buck. And Dave ended up shooting the buck. It came up to me and then turned and walked over by him. And then there was an outcry when some guy in western Wisconsin shot some famous white deer, and a bunch of libs and animal rights activists and stuff went crazy on Scott Walker, and he wanted to not lose his votes, so he backed down and changed the law on albino deer. So there was a 3-year period where you could shoot them only in the CWD zone in a small section of Wisconsin, this is the section. And this area here, Jacob can attest, has a lot of albino deer, not necessarily albino, but they're white phase, so they're completely white, but they got brown eyes in a lot of cases. I mean, I almost hit a white buck 2 days ago. I had to slam on the brakes, skidded right up to it. And there's been times when I've filmed and gotten camera pictures of 3 to 5 at one time.
Now, piebalds, that's a different story. Piebalds are legal.
You hardly get any of them. It's so weird. You'd think you'd see a piebald every now and then, but
Yeah,
I haven't seen one.
I've only seen like 1 of those in my life.
Yeah, I got a buddy, Chris Leppert. Yeah, I mean, Dan, you know Chris.
Yep.
I'm sure you do too, Scott. But he shot a piebald 10-point and a piebald doe, so he's like got multiple piebald deer. And I'm like, dude, where are you getting these things? He's like, you got albinos, you should have piebalds. Like, no, they don't have albinos, but they do have piebalds, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dan, it is pretty common around here. And you know, when I talked to the DNR about the severity of this case, they said they're protected like wolves. You know, they're protected. I think it has something to do with indigenous cultures too. Like,
yeah,
I don't know, some spirit thing or whatever. But you know, don't quote me on that. But
no, that's you're right.
Yeah, so there's something around it where it's really protected. But I heard that this year maybe they're trying to open back up, and I don't know if it's for this. I don't think it's for this season. I think it would have already been instated, but but maybe for the upcoming seasons. And I think a few local counties are some of the ones they're proposing, which is
Yeah, they're only proposing it where the numbers are growing really high. Because I mean, around here, there's certain small sections, not like the whole county of Jefferson, but there's certain small sections where they're
Pockets, yeah.
claiming it's something like 30% white,
Mhm.
which is crazy. And it's growing because you can't shoot the white ones. So it's actually screwing up the genetics. However, I don't think it's the DNR that's proposing it. I don't think they're on board with it. I think somebody proposed it. Now they got to address it.
Yeah.
They did have a recent meeting about it, and I did post that meeting to allow people to voice their opinions on it. But they kind of hide that, and not a lot of people got to find out that there was a meeting. And they made it kind of hard to join the meeting, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, people really get all up in their feels when in other states where it is legal and in places and they see it, like people really, I don't know what it is. It's like this deer's got white privilege or something, but well, that's a different thing.
That should be the name of the podcast, White Privilege.
Right.
It should have been.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, people really get really upset about that, and for whatever reason. I mean, it's a genetic defect, is what it really is, and those deer, quite honestly, outside of hunters, are kind of up against it. Now down here, maybe not so much, other than maybe potentially getting hit by a motor vehicle, but up north, you don't have that camouflage. Maybe in the wintertime you do in heavy snow, but outside of that, like, you're sticking out like a sore thumb out in the woods for predators and stuff.
I think they're really lucky in the swamps because it's like, Dan, I'm sure you've spooked one in a hunt before, but it's like you can be at a good vantage point and they get 15 yards into cover and they just disappear, which is wild, but it might have a lot to do with the thickness of the cover. But like, if you see them in the open, it's just like, holy crap, there's a highlighter walking through,
Yeah.
And I think, like kind of what you're saying with them being recessive, they don't often carry very nice antlers, but they also develop like albinism at age, like older age is often linked to blindness as well. So like you could become blind and have other health issues and stuff linked with
Well, I
it.
think there's a distinction there between a white deer versus
White
albino.
versus albino, yeah.
And
that's
that
good.
because with albino, you're going to have the pink nose and the different eyes in that, where this one buck, it appears just to be a white buck, but the DNR doesn't distinguish the difference between the two in terms of, if it's white, it doesn't have any brown spots on it of any sort, it's off limits. They don't.
White face is kind of weird because the most of them have a black nose and brown eyes.
Right.
But some of them in this herd do have varying amounts of pigment missing out of their nose and out of their eyes. I've been around a lot of them, and some of them have like the full-blown pink nose and pink eyes, and some of them have like a blue eyes and a spotted nose. The white deer I shot had blue eyes, bright blue eyes, and a spotted nose.
Yeah.
So it wasn't completely just like white face, black feet or whatever. So there is something to do with pigment loss with those deer. I don't know what it is, but they're not like, some of them aren't full blown albinos, but they don't differentiate between them, because how could you?
Right.
And it really isn't about them being albino or non albino. It's about non-hunters who want to see white deer, basically.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. I mean, that is it, period. Now, in terms of piebalds and that too, I don't want to trail off too much here. We'll get back into the story here in just a second. But it's actually funny though, the hunting this weekend, and this is something I've seen on one of my leases throughout the years, that there is a DNA or some sort of trait here in certain does. I have not seen it in bucks, but I see it quite often in the does. And this year in particular already, I had one where its coat is very different. A lot of white on its legs, like looks like it's got white socks on, to be honest. The glands, the tarsal gland area is really white. The insides of the legs are extremely white, larger patches of white going down its chest. And then the coat, I mean, I know they're still somewhat transitioning their coats from summer to winter, but very, very light colored. Not white by any means, still kind of a grayish color, but a lot lighter gray. When another doe comes in with her, you can absolutely tell the difference. In fact, I could have taken her dead to rights multiple times throughout the weekend, but I don't know. Every time I do, there's like a flock of like chickadees that come in, and all the squirrels come, and a bunny rabbit, and that. And I'm like, what the heck's going on? I'm in the middle of a Disney movie here from 1968. Like, all of a sudden I can't do it because the birds are chirping and that, and she's always by herself. So I'm like, I don't know. In fact, yeah, John, here I see in the comments. Yes, that is the term.
Leucistic.
And you see that with turkeys in that too. You know, we call it color phases, right? And that's pretty common with turkeys. You get different color phases with wild turkeys as well. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's because they bred with a domestic turkey and that. No, it's a recessive genetic trait. So thank you for
a couple years back. 2 years ago, a lot of the people in the area were also filming a melanistic deer.
Melanistic.
Really
yes.
rare.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if it has something to do with it, because why would it end up in the same area as all these white deer? Matter of fact, I seen it, and it was in a field with 3 white deer and a brown deer. You know, I mean, what are the odds of that?
That's a DEI hire right there, Dan.
Right. we could do some Come By Eye songs or something there. But but I don't know what happened to that deer. It kind of disappeared. But they're legal. But if you actually Google melanistic deer, there's only been probably like 5 or 6 shot ever in the United States, and they're legal because they're like black, and it'd be too. I guess in their mindset, it'd be too hard to differentiate a black deer from a brown deer, and I guess people don't love black deer as much as they love white ones. You know, maybe it's still a little racist or something going on, but that deer's probably still around, because when I saw it, I thought it was either a fawn or a year and a half old deer, but I saw it from quite a distance. I went there looking for it.
I heard about one too, Dan.
Probably the same one, because they're pretty rare.
Yeah. And who knows, you know, like you hear about that guy, it's like, oh my gosh, I saw a giant the other day, and you're looking at a 100-inch deer, you know. So like some people are, but the guy that said a similar thing to what you just said, he said he saw it in the field with other deer, and it was, you know, clearly different. So, you know, who knows?
And we got you can go ahead and respond.
Yeah, Dan, I'm having a great time. Or Stan, I'm having a great time. Yeah. And I even commented back at you. What are you doing? Yeah. No, it's great.
All right.
I think he's hinting at the uncomfortability about the whole invoking race on deer. And
right. Hey, it makes me a little uncomfortable too.
The reason I look so red right now is I have a tiny ass house, and I'm in a closet with no AC. So you're gonna see my forehead start to get shinier as I go here.
Just like mine. I mean, mine always shiny. Like, I mean, it's a mirror.
Yeah, I lock myself in here to get ready for the early season. So
there you go. Yes, that's a good way to go about it. John says here, melanistic deer have a genetic mutation that causes their bodies to produce too much melanin, resulting in dark brown or black fur. You are correct, sir. Thank you for the comment, though, very much. All right, let's get back to the poaching incident here. Where did we leave off? We had the pictures of the buck, and then I think we're moving on to the poacher capture taking the same route.
So that's that same camera that you guys saw him on the way up. So again, I am out of this spot. I am not on this spot after seeing that guy blow his scent into this bedding area completely. Yeah. So I moved on to another property, and you know, I got a picture of him. I jokingly sent it to my buddies. I'm like, get ready, you know, he's coming by. So that's kind of it for this slide.
Okay.
And then obviously you saw the same attire there too. So like,
yep.
Albino, everyone gets him all throughout the day, and then, you know, again, normally not getting sent these pictures, but getting sent them in the case of we're doing an investigation. And so a lot of these I got actually like a couple months after the season, because people didn't even want to like send a picture from their camera, regardless of what it's of, you know, during the season, because they're all worried about that kind of stuff, which is fine. But so this one is actually my camera, and so this on the right side is this albino stepping out, and on the left picture It is 4:58 p.m. is the shooting close, and we're 4 minutes and a few seconds away from the close of shooting. So obviously, a deer that hasn't been shot at is going to work a lot slower than one that was just shot. So he's going to be running, after he gets shot. And I guess that's kind of foreshadowing here. But on the next slide, you'll see the albino returns, and the first picture I get is the one on the right. And so I'm like, oh, he's back, but he looks kind of stressed out. And I'm actually climbing down from a tree in another marsh right now, and I am like 2 sticks from the bottom, and I refresh my phone, and the next picture pops up, and it's his guts hanging out.
Yeah, I was going to say that like there looks to be blood, kind of like a shot, maybe slightly back, maybe liver or something, or
it looks like he might have clipped front side lung and then exited a long cut through the guts. And so he probably just dumped the guts. And honestly, you can make a really good shot, and like you can sweep the entire first length of the lung, hit liver on the backside, and rip the deer's guts out. So
yeah,
I mean, this isn't an ideal shot placement, but it certainly can happen, in unique scenarios. And that cut is not, I'll clarify here, is not as wide as that imprint looks. That's some blood running down too, because I know it's kind of hard to see, but on a white deer, it's much more apparent where the blood is than a normal one. But so you can see the deer is obviously incredibly stressed here. Its guts hanging out,
mouth open.
Like we mentioned, like Mike, we mentioned before, a deer that has been shot is gonna, even if it's gut shot, it's gonna move a lot quicker than one that is just roaming around, most likely. And this is 12 minutes after shooting close. So 4 minutes from shooting close, he's perfectly fine. And then we get him back at the same point, a whole 12 minutes and change after shooting close, meaning that this deer was probably shot just a couple minutes ago and very, very, very likely shot after shooting time had closed. And so, long story short, this deer, as you could probably imagine, expires very, very close to this camera. So you can move on a little further, and 20-something minutes later, so this guy probably watched it fall, packed up his stuff, or dropped it off because he doesn't have his gear with him, but same attire, same glasses, same headband on the camera, or on his headlamp, but he crosses in front of that camera and then starts looping back around towards the access. So I'm assuming that he found that deer immediately after crossing that camera and decided to turn around, get his stuff, and get out of there. So I'm still like, I see this deer with its guts pouring out, and I'm standing in a tree, hanging from this tree, halfway through getting my sticks down, and I'm like, oh geez, my phone's dying at this point, and so I'm refreshing it like crazy, and I call up my buddy Wyatt of Grounded Hunting is his YouTube. I think he's leaving some comments here right now. But so because I know he's got a thermal drone and I know he's in the area, so I was like, hey, can you check the lots, because it's pretty late after shooting time, like, and just when you get there, just let me know if anyone's in any of the lots. And there's not many options, so he does a quick run and checks like pretty much the only lot out there, and there's one vehicle, and so he's like, oh, there's one vehicle here. And I was like, all right, I just got pictures of that albino, and he was very clear which one it was, with its guts hanging out of my camera, and I'm pissed. Like, I have a few cuss words coming out of my mouth at this point, because it was like, one thing after the other. I had basically ran into pressure in spots that I didn't normally, day after day, and people being blatantly rude in those encounters, like, so it was tough. And so I was frustrated, and I was like, hey dude, like, go fly for this deer and recover it. And he's like, well, you got to show me, like, you're showing me a picture of the deer shot, but you didn't shoot it, so I can't do that. I'm like, all right, I'm going to call the DNR. We're going to figure something out. So I call the county DNR and get nothing, which is really rare in this particular area. And so then I called 2 other DNR and got a hold of someone, and they were like, yeah, the county correspondent is out of state, and the rest of us are like 45 minutes away. Like, we can't get there. And I'm like, oh my God, like, you have this poacher dead to rights, and you can't get a DNR officer out to like this lot. Yeah. And so they were like, we'll call the cops. And so I was like, all right, fine. They'll call the cops. So I was like, I got a buddy that does drone recovery. Are you okay if he recovers this deer and proves that this deer's out there? And they're like, sure. Well, in the time it took to finally get a hold of the other DNR wardens and the police officer, pretty certain my buddy was on another track at that point. So he was flying for another guy. And so he had to finish up his flight, and the police get to the lot. I'm sending them coordinates for the camera. I'm sending them the exact route they're on. Like, I'm being as detailed as possible, down to the hundredth of a degree of place where that is. And so I direct them to the lot.
Were you sending them Onyx points?
I was sending them the actual coordinates so that if they didn't have Onyx, they could just use the actual latitude, longitude coordinates.
Right.
And so that some of the DNR officers actually preferred Onyx points. So I would send them that and screenshots. And then I ended up sending them the real, north, south, east, west coordinate. And so they got to the lot, and they're waiting and waiting and waiting. And, this guy was, like we said, we got him over a mile's worth of distance. So he was a long ways up. And we get him exiting on that camera, and we're like, they're at the lot at this point. So we're like, all right, get ready. He's coming. Like, he's coming down. And so Poacher works past, and the police are waiting for him. And right about the time that he gets back to the lot, my friend arrives at that lot and is there for the confrontation. I actually think, I think he's in the comments right now. Wyatt, you'll have to correct me here, but I actually think it was his dad and his younger sister were the ones that actually ended up confronting the poacher in the lot, because they were quite pissed about this too. And they're like, well, we're not going to start anything, but they were there for the confrontation. And the police were like, did you shoot a deer back there? Like, we got a report that there's a deer back there, and that someone shot. And he's like, no, I didn't. They're like, well, we got a report that someone poached a deer back there, and we're going to go in there and find it. And we have coordinates of where it was last seen. And like, you sure you didn't? He's like, nope. And, he's not detained at this point. So he leaves. Yeah. So they get a hold of him. Wyatt's on his way. And so the police actually go, and they might have gotten one of the DNR agents there at that time, and they go recover that deer. And by the time Wyatt was done with his call, is how it went down that night, they had found the deer, because they basically walked to the pin of my trail camera and were right there. So I think Wyatt was almost all the way there, and they called him off. They're like, we don't need a flight. The deer's right here. And so, so they, over the next 2 days, launch a big investigation. And like I said, this guy had to walk through over a mile's worth of prime bedding almost to get to where he was. And so they got to go up and down multiple times to get this deer out. They got to go up and down multiple times to check all the trail cameras on the way. They start to check every camera along the way, make sure it has the proper identification. If they could find out who had that camera, they were contacting them and saying, hey, you're lacking your DNR number on here. Can you throw it on here in the next day so we don't have to confiscate it, because we're doing an investigation here. If they couldn't get a hold of them, they just took the SD cards and they took the cameras, like per the law, and it was all part of evidence. And so they scooped a couple cameras up along the way. They left a lot of them be because they had the right identification, which is funny because they're literally just going a straight line, and they're still capturing all this stuff. But yeah, it was pretty wild. And there's some more pictures here I have in some of these slides of more things from the recovery. And so, yeah, you can see here, if you look on the left there, hanging out of the backpack of that warden's thing is the crossbow bolt. So the guy deserted the crossbow bolt, and we got him coming to the lot with one crossbow bolt that matches this one. So,
Okay.
the police are there to essentially affirm that. We got the DNR the next day, kind of, so that the darker picture on the right is the night of. That's the police and DNR. And then we've got DNR police the next day, essentially recovering the deer and doing more of their investigation, documenting, I'm sure, waypoints, distances. But at this point, they're going to be really secretive to me about everything because, as of now, it's an investigation. So
Right.
they would just call me for a period of about a month. They'd call me like once or twice a week and be like, how do you know this? How do you know that? How do you know no one else is there? How do you know the direction he went? And I was like, I got everything. Like, this is open and shut. And so, I'm sending them it, and they're still just like, well, how do you actually know? And I'm like, you have the other people that were on that property that day waiting for the guy to get out of there. Like, it's it's as
They
clear
have
as
no idea that people really hunt like us.
right. I'm like, it was to the point, Dan, that I was going to be like, I would love for you to dream up a place you can legally access besides this and get there. Like if you can walk that route, I will hang up the bow for the rest of my life. Like if
Yeah.
you could realistically do that in the timeline that it would take someone to get out of there and avoid you at this point, like I mean, it is unreal. But they're covering their bases, right? I mean, that's how any good investigation should be. If they're going to bring anything forward, it should be with all the details and evidence. And so, yeah, it was wicked. But basically, if you're you're connecting the dots in the story, they got a guy going in there. I don't know if he doesn't have a license or anything like that, but what they've told me at this point is they've issued 4 citations. I can only dream up what those are, but in my mind, we got him shooting an illegal species, so that's the albino deer. Um, I think we can say beyond reasonable doubt that he shot it after shooting time. He lied to the police and he deserted the carcass. So if I had to dream up those 4 things, then that would be it. Now, I think you can make an argument that you can't prove that he didn't shoot it like after dark, like after legal shooting hours.
Yeah, that's a little
So
bit tougher.
I think that there's some other charge they're booking him on here, or some other citation they're issuing for some other reason. And another little layer I left out is, like we said, there's this lot.
I mean, police obstruction. I mean,
Yeah,
possibly.
yeah,
True.
true.
Some sort of obstruction violation.
Right, and so the other layer I'm somewhat leaving out here, that I didn't remember at first was I went to hunt that property the next day, and like we said, there's one common access, and I was going a completely different area if I could affect it. So I wasn't hunting nearly within this zone that guy walked, and I'm insane as we've established, and so I got to the lot at around like 2:30 in the morning. I had a super super far walk in, and so I know that I'm going to be sitting right over a bed. It's I think it was the 8th at this point. So a lot of the times when big bucks are with does, they're isolated with them. They're not trying to get disturbed at this point. So like I oftentimes see them on like tamarack root balls, things that they can kind of be with that doe and be away from other bucks, or at least know when they're coming. At least the situations that I found effective to hunt. There's plenty other things that are going on the property and plenty of other deer doing other stuff. But I knew that if I wanted to sit over a root ball that I believe a buck was going to hold up with a doe with, I better beat him there. And I better beat him there by a really good margin. And I had a long way to go. So I was planning on being in the stand an hour before light. And so this is absolutely criminally insane for someone to be getting ready to walk in at this point. And I know no one's as crazy as I am. But I'm sitting in the lot and a car pulls in next to me at 2:30 in the morning. And I turn around and look at him, and he slams it in reverse and burns rubber and gets the hell out of there. I'm betting it was that guy coming to remove the evidence. So, and it was the same vehicle. It was the same vehicle, matched the same description
Wow.
that my buddy had given me. So it's dark. I don't have a headlamp on at that point. I think that's why he rolled into the lot, because I had no lights on, kind of by design. But I'm pretty sure that it was that same guy. I can't say for certain, coming to get that deer out of there before they could, I don't think I think he was hoping the police didn't actually back up their claim, because that was quite the distance to go get a deer that night. But I ended up going in on that hunt. And like I just said, I had like 2-3 days in a row of like really odd, like weird hunter encounters. And I got way back to this spot an hour before light. And about 15 minutes after I set up, that buck came in with that doe. My wind was perfect. I heard him lay down in front of me. And so I'm sitting there with my bow in hand, just waiting for it to get light out. And about 30 minutes before opening light, I see a guy walking off a private with his headlamp in the marsh, and I can hear him walking through. And I'm like, oh boy, you got to be kidding me. And I can see him for 500 yards, and he's walking. And he gets within 100 yards of these deer, and they sense him, and they spook off, and they start to walk away. So he keeps coming and coming and coming. And I can only see him because it's very light moon. And he gets to about 75, and I'm like, dude, this guy's going to sit in my tree. And so I start flashing my headlamp at him. I'm like, I got no choice. So I turn on my headlamp, and I'm flashing it in strobe mode. And it's like a rechargeable, like really nice headlamp. It's actually the one I use to track. And so it's super bright. And I see him stop. He looks around and then he just keeps going. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, he clearly saw me. And he set up, I shit you not, 99.5 yards from me. He's in a tree, 99.5 yards, and he's rattling every 10 minutes and stuff. And I'm like, this is insane. Like, the people are out to get me. Like, this is wild at this point. And so I discounted the entire direction that he came from, thinking that, it wasn't going to happen because he just put his scent all over it. Well, like 2 hours after first light, that buck J hooked around and went back to that bed. And he was coming into that bed, and I wasn't looking that direction. And I turn around, and I just hear him like 2 steps too late. And as I'm turning to get my camera on him, he catches me and spooks, runs right past the other guy, never sees him. And the other guy never sees him. And I was like, what the hell? So it's like 10:30, and this guy starts getting down, and I race down to go meet up with him. And I'm like, dude, like, what's going on? He's like, oh my God, dude. I thought I was hallucinating. I didn't think it was possible for someone to be on the public that far that early in the morning. He's like, I thought I was like seeing some ship or something, and I was just worked up and too tired and stuff. And I was like, oh my God. He ended up being a really nice guy, but it was like, I mean, I rarely go up and say something to someone if I'm like upset, but I was like, man, like I can't imagine a world where everyone is just where someone would do that, like where you flash a strobe light at them, way before light, and then they set up 100 yards for you. It seemed like purposefully spiteful, but like,
Yeah.
it turns out he was just an older gentleman that was like, yeah, I thought it was impossible for someone to be there. So it was, yeah, the property is kind of like the Wild West. There's actually a quote in one of my videos that I say stuff was about to get real Western in the marshes of Wisconsin. And it's referring to how much pressure is really there. But man, it was like just a crazy few days, in this area. But man, yeah, I will say my hunting habits have changed since those occurrences in
Sure.
terms of the properties I'm selecting.
I guess the one thing that I can't get out of my head thinking about this entire story is, what did he think he was really going to get away with? What is at the end of the day, right? I mean, you're never going. Is he a taxidermist himself? Like, what was he going to do with this animal? I mean, was he going to claim that it was shot during that period of time where it was okay to shoot white deer? I mean, the rack wasn't even that impressive at this point. I mean, it was still, don't get me wrong. I mean, this wasn't its peak, right? But it's to poach a white deer as opposed to something else. I mean, was this deer very calm around because he wasn't actually being hunted? What was his demeanor different than other deer in that area, other mature whitetails?
I think he was just moving quite a bit. I think he was moving quite a bit more, and no pressure ever ended up in a lethal threat to him. There's plenty of deer that have gotten an arrow in them over the years around here, or shot at like crazy. But I doubt he caught a round or a arrow very often. And it's such an interesting thought, the way that deer learn from you, because they have to almost be like, how humans are innately born with a fear of snakes. It's like hardwired into us. It's not necessarily a learned behavior.
Yeah.
And science has proved that over time. Deer kind of have to have that for humans. They have to perceive every human encounter as a potentially lethal one unless they've been conditioned otherwise, So, because you screw up one time and you're dead, like it's over.
Right.
So I don't know how this deer ended up figuring out that these weren't lethal intent encounters.
He was safe, right?
It seemed like how you have an anomaly of a person that loves snakes and wants to pet them and stuff like that, like me or Dan. So like, I think that this deer didn't perceive these things maybe as a lethal encounter. I think it sure would have got the heck out of there, if it had a really close encounter with a person. But sure. I think it's like the kid that doesn't get punished, all of a sudden lives on his own and ends up in jail. It's like, I think that this deer was not getting reprimanded for this risky behavior for so long. And contrary to the other mature deer in the area who do their large movements at night, which is why a lot of people knew about them but they managed to live because they weren't doing it as much in the day. This deer seemed to do it more in the day, and also did it more when there was does around. And I know there was a hot doe moving around the area. And so I think that, and this is just me assigning some human logic to a deer. I could be completely wrong here, but I think that deer probably had just been getting away with that kind of movement for too long. And I think that poacher, I want to believe that people aren't innately evil, but I think that was just a guy who's probably in his upper 20s, low 30s, that had been hunting and doing some god awful accesses and had no success, and saw a giant white deer, got really excited, and was like, just made a terrible mistake and made the decision to shoot it. And, I just think it was a horrible decision, and,
Well, certainly.
I don't know what he intended to get out of it, but I think that he let maybe just the desire to be excited about a deer and get one, overcome his moral compass in that moment. So unfortunately, a very horrible decision. So.
Right. I mean, and to go back to, some of the deer's behavior, right? This buck's behavior, and maybe being accustomed to not being pressured, or the pressure not being lethal to him. Or,
Yeah.
We see this a lot. Like, I live in the city here, and not a large city here in southeast Wisconsin, but I walk every night, several hours a night, and I encounter deer constantly. Whether it be on the edge of the woods or in somebody's front yard. I mean, last night there was 2 does with 4 fawns, right? And it's just a common thing. And I can literally walk past, and that, as long as I'm not, full on approaching them, they'll stay within 10 yards of me. And I'll just say, like, hey, mama, how's it going? No worries, just passing through. And they might take a step or two back, but that's it, because they're used to being around humans. So I think that is obviously something that, deer will evolve, they'll evolve, whether these are constantly city deer. So this is generation after generation after generation of these deer being kind of somewhat ingrained, like you had said about snakes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's because of generations of being inherently, people being afraid of snakes. So then it's kind of becomes ingrained in our DNA. I think the same thing can be said with those. And maybe that is with the white deer too. I don't know.
I think Dan would have probably, I've been curious how you would answer that too, Dan, because like, you have a ton of experience in these particular areas with these deer. So have you noticed anything with like a deer that just seems to get away with bloody murder acting different?
Stupid dies. When you're stupid, you die early, right? And the majority of deer make mistakes that are fatal before they get to age. The superior animals live. A white deer gets the chance to live regardless of his smarts, regardless of his encounters, right? And like you said, people aren't actively pursuing them. I'm sure that has a little to do with it, but a lot of it has to do with being allowed to live. I mean, you get onto private managed land, something like Drury's are hunting or something, or Diaquistos. You get on that land and you'll have 150-inch bucks just walk up to you like they're stupid, look at you in the tree, and keep eating. Yeah. And the reason is they're not actively hunted. They're just, it's like the deer that Scott's seeing. They're not pursued. People aren't like locking up and hiding in the bushes when they see them. They're not running at them. They're not jumping up and running at them with guns and stuff. I'm sure that deer gets pretty smart during gun season and disappears. It's a matter of stupid dies, and that deer, could be stupid and had a free pass, basically.
I'd say you said a lot of things about white privilege right there. Just free pass, not getting hunted, gets a pass through light. Jeez, Dan, it's weird to see you turning a new leaf like this, but
the farmers actually bring him corn.
They serve it on a platter for him. Right. Yeah, those are all.
The thing when I look at this thing and if you took this whole scenario and it was a brown deer, I wouldn't really give
the DNR wouldn't do much about it.
People get excited. They shoot a few minutes after hours or whatever. He's coming back for it. But in this case, unless that guy had no idea that white deer are illegal, which is a possibility, but then you'd think he would have just said at the parking lot, yeah, I shot one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
He seemed
If you
too
do that,
deceptive.
He didn't notice any cameras the whole way too. So he has no clue.
I was gonna say that too. Like,
not to
wow.
notice all those cameras, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta. I mean, just take a piss in the woods. I gotta look all over the place. Just not that I care that somebody gets the picture, but I don't need it blowing up the internet, right?
Well,
Right,
they'd have to
right.
blow it up pretty big, yeah.
I mean, you've peed on like 5 of my cameras, I'm pretty sure. Dan.
But yeah, well, I like doing it too. But
Yeah.
anywho, I mean, for him to know it was a white deer, know it was illegal, and to shoot that deer anyways and do it after hours, that's a person who needed to get caught.
Yeah.
That's a person who knows what all he was doing. I mean, gosh, I mean, to even have the mentality that you get away with that.
Right.
What was he like? Was he going to let it rot? I mean, not come back? Was he going to just take the antlers after it rotted or something?
Yeah,
I mean,
who
what
knows?
was he even thinking? It almost seems like it was a thrill kill, and he doesn't care. He just probably goes through the woods shooting stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
that's what I can't understand.
So, you know, I look at that and I think this is a guy that could literally, I mean, I hate to jump to conclusions here, but be a serial killer or something. I mean, how can you? That's just weird. I mean,
It is.
if I had no intentions of taking a deer, would I shoot it? You know, or there's no way to get it home. I mean, it just you couldn't get the deer out of there. I mean, he knows other people are hunting there, and he's so far back. I mean, what are you going to drag a white deer out of there? So he had no intention on taking that deer out of there. I don't think.
I'm betting he took my camera too. Like,
He probably did. He probably, and like you said, I'm sure that was him trying to collect evidence, knowing that they were onto him.
Yeah.
In the parking lot. Did you turn that incident in when you ran to the parking lot?
I
you
told them
follow up?
about it. I told the DNR about it, but like, there's just so much coming in that like they were focused on probably a little heavier details. And it's like it's November 7th, so like they're probably getting all sorts of different complaints and info and whatnot. You know, like probably a lot of people trespassing at that time of year. And
I'm really
you know,
shocked to see him all over the news.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it needs to finish through some court process and he needs to pay tickets, but I almost wonder
Look
if
at
they're
everybody
like,
else. So when they get charged, it goes all over the place.
yeah. Well, I'm
Yeah.
almost wondering if it was some scenario the guy's claiming he didn't know. I'm almost wondering if it was an inexperienced hunter or something. They're trying to show the kid. I say kid, and he's probably older than me, but they're trying to show someone, you know, a little bit of mercy or something.
Yeah.
You know, we had this a guy in our hometown. You know, it's the captain of our wrestling team in high school, and that's like, it's not to brag, it's context for the story, but there was a guy that had got caught robbing the concession stand, and our coach, if there was someone of questionable moral standing, we had the right as captains to say that they belong in the team or not, and then he would give the final call. And it's because our team means a lot more. Like, we all had to have good academic standing. We all had to be model people in the community to be on the wrestling team, because it's a lot more than just being good at a sport. And to that effect, there were some wrestlers that were going to be state champions that were kicked off of our team. You know, something that could bring us plenty of recognition and money and resources. And, you know, they weren't allowed to compete on our team because they were not good people. So we came to this case where we were talking about this guy, and we were like, you know, do we let him wrestle? And then it was, wrestlers were going back and forth, and my coach, was a Hall of Fame coach for a good reason, said, you know what, this guy needs wrestling a lot more than wrestling needs him right now. And the lessons that he's going to learn through this season by all of you holding him accountable and kicking his ass when he does something wrong, but more importantly, being part of a brotherhood of people to show him the right way, are going to last for the rest of his life. And you guys can say what you want about his character right now, but give him a shot, and at the end of this year, he'll be a lot different person. And he was completely changed by the end of the year. And so I think some people can see a bad example and turn the best of it. Some people see a bad example and they say, well, it's the only one I've ever seen. I'm just going to emulate that and make it my life. I'm hoping that this is God teaching this guy a lesson, and maybe he's showing him a little bit of mercy, and that this isn't plastered all over the news. And maybe this is something that will cause him to change his way. And Dan, to your point, you know, maybe it was behavior that was going to get to the edge of, you know, being a serial killer, just something, you know, something elevated beyond animals and maybe to humans. And hopefully that this was like the thing that a deer that's 9, 10 years old was probably going to die of old age or coyotes or something within the year was maybe the sacrifice, a white deer, if it is something spiritual or holy. um, maybe this was kind of the thing that needed to happen in order for him to have his eyes open to his behavior and the path that was leading him down. So if I had to put any positive spin on it, I'm hoping that was the purpose of this death of that deer.
Well, I got to say that's a fantastic way to look at it for sure. And I mean, I think we should probably all be a little bit more like that in some ways, and show a little more empathy or forgiveness in that people can make mistakes. We all have made mistakes. We're all without sin, right? Or with, we're not
Right.
without sin
Without
at
sin,
some
yeah.
point or another. And again, not to justify, we have no idea what his intentions were or whatever, but that's a fantastic way of looking at it for sure. And, for 26 years old, you're quite wise beyond your years, I would say, Jacob.
I've been very fortunate to have a lot of really good people in my life, and Dan, yourself included. Like you have, I mean, the first time we met, we had like a 3-hour conversation about like, you'd think you sit down with the hunting beast and you're going to talk about tactics and you're going to talk about, all sorts of stuff in the outdoors. And you told stories of your childhood. We talked about getting my wife into hunting. We talked about, how we believe we could become better men and what our goal was. And like, I still talk about like lessons from the first time meeting you. And I've had, the pleasure of several years with that. And you're just one of the many people I've gotten to meet, in this space. And, fortunately, we can have as many bad examples and bad occurrences as we want, but I've had so many more positive interactions with people in the outdoor community than literally any other space.
Yeah.
You know what it is you kind of focus on the bad. You know what I mean? It makes everything look worse in hunting, or anything. When you look at like social media or whatever, and you get bad comments under videos or something, it's one bad comment out of 1,000 good ones, but you dwell on that bad one because it hurts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anywho, for those that are so unfortunate that they don't know about your channel, are you going to put this hunt on your channel at all? Are you going to talk about, or not this hunt, but this poaching incident? You going to talk about it all on there? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to be releasing video. Yeah. My channel is a Wild Calling. But
I have a link in the description for you guys to check out as well too. So
yeah, I appreciate that. But we're going to be, I'm a one-man show, so there's no we, but I'm going to be releasing videos every Thursday, and I try to put a more than necessary amount of effort into getting the right angles and footage and editing it so it's an entertaining story. And I don't do that because I feel like editing is necessary to make a good video. I don't think it is at all. But I have a very personal relationship with the name of my channel and a very personal relationship with hunting and why I think it's important for a lot of people to get into and kind of discover their path with it. And so all of these videos and all of these hunts, for many reasons, are very good memories of mine. And I think that there's a lesson in each of them. And my goal is to do homage and pay respect to that memory in the highest regard possible, so you guys know what I went through, and maybe you guys will be attracted to it, kind of through that effort I've put into it. And so that's why, I spend a lot of time on it. But I think I've got 15 consecutive weeks of videos coming out, which is really hard for me to do. And I've got, in order here, I have a video with my wife coming up next this Thursday. I have a sit that has to do with finding out my target buck is still alive and the tactics to relocate that I use personally to relocate a deer. Dan, I met you in a lot for the one after this, and you're going to laugh. I got really good footage of a really nice 8-point buck walking right underneath a kid, and he's got headphones on and his phone out, and he doesn't realize that the buck is walking right underneath him. That's the next one. I have a video called Action Packed Day, and then like 2 later, this one's going to come out. So all of the videos should have a really good lesson and or a big buck encounter in it.
very cool. We're at about an hour and 15 minutes into this here, but I think we got a little time, don't you, Dan? If we could bring up one of Jacob's bucks here and have him and talk about it real quick. You guys good with that, Jacob? Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right, well, let's do it here because I want to hear the story on this one here.
Yeah, so that buck I killed in 2023 in Wisconsin. That buck, I didn't name it Kingpin, but basically it got dubbed that because I was on a scout trip before the season and showing people how I scouted the area and kind of what I was seeing based on the sign. And I got to this area that, like we talked about, kind of that mid-November, second week of November time frame. Was getting used, and it was several tamarack root balls joined up, and there was a blazed up tamarack tree. And I was like basically calling my shot, saying, I say in the video, this looks like a buck that's just rubbing with his forehead here. It looks like he's got wide brows that are completely missing the tree. Who knew if that was going to turn out right? But I said that the title of the video, Closing In on the Kingpin, because I felt like the sign I had found that day would belong to the deer that kind of owned that section of the marsh when it came rut. Lo and behold, I ended up chasing a deer that was bigger than this all season. It was a 12-point buck that was just gorgeous on another property. And I went to Ohio, killed a buck. And while I was in Ohio, the buck I had been after all year got killed. And I was majorly depressed. He got posted on a forum for a little bit. My buddy took a screenshot and sent it to me, and the guy deleted the post. And he sent it to me, and I was like from the highest of highs in Ohio to almost in tears on the drive home. And this was my first year coming back home and hunting the marshes from college. So I had two days before daylight savings kicked in, and I think I had 3 hunts that I could actually do before gun season, and things get shifted around quite a bit around here during gun season.
Yeah.
So I kind of counted it as 3 opportunities to get a good deer, for the season. And while I was in Ohio, I was hunting with Jake Bush, and we were sitting on top of one of the few ridges where we got signal, and I got a picture of this deer. And I was like, Jake, I got to check this camera. I'm sorry. I know we're going over stuff for the day. But if a deer shows up in this bed, like, it's going to be a big one. I got a picture of this deer. And so basically dissected what that deer was doing on that day. There was a doe group that frequently used that bed where I had thought that bed was going to get used year round. There's a doe group that frequently used it year round. And when that doe group broke apart, one doe, the matriarch, stayed, and that buck would hole up with that doe there. And so I put one sit in that area on that deer for my first of 3, and I could hear deer moving further back into the bedding cover, but I never saw anything. So I was like, this is not what I should be doing. I shouldn't be hunting a camera. I shouldn't be doing that. Like, this deer's not going to show up like this. This is not how I even want to kill one. But I was so razzled by, the deer I had built all this history with being gone. And I was like, you know what? I know what I'm doing. I'm going to go back to square one, and I'm going to scout my way in, and I'm going to go over the map, and I'm going to scout my way in. I'm going to figure out the sign, and I'm going to use the sign to make a decision about where to sit. And so I scouted my way in. I checked several trails that entered into bedding, and on one of them, there was a doe bed, and that doe bed reeked like estrus. And I was like, all right, we're just going to follow the scent in the tracks of this doe, wherever the mud is splattered onto the cattails from a deer walking, and we're going to follow her as close as we think we can get to bedding cover, and then set up in the nearest tree we can without spooking the deer that might lie further in. So I basically got my way in, saw that trail going further back into the tamaracks, and I was like, all right, I can't go further than this point. I'm going to get up in this tree. And I ended up getting up in the tree, and about an hour before dark, I could hear a deer stand up, and I just heard splashing, a little bit. And the first thing I heard was actually like, if you can imagine someone, drinking through a straw, but like the straw is just barely touching the water, kind of like a slurping sound.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's a deer drinking water. Like, that's cool. I thought they drank like a dog, like you use your tongue to lap it up. And no, they drink it like their mouth is a straw. And then I thought, holy crap, that means that deer is right on top of me if I can hear it drinking water. So I ended up having this doe work in with the buck tailing her, and I can hear him grunting the whole way in. And I got footage of this whole thing. And long story short, this doe pokes out at 20 yards. she spends about a minute surveying the opening because she doesn't want to walk out into open cover. And that buck's behind her. And the second she pokes out in the opening, locks onto me. And I'm like, oh, I need to draw now because that trail leads right underneath my tree. And if I try to draw while she's underneath me, I'm getting busted all day. So I drew and I held and I held and I held and I held. And that doe walked out, curled around, and eventually that buck came around to 20 yards. And I stopped him. I had held the draw for 2 minutes and 20 seconds at that point.
Wow.
And shot him. And I have a little timer in the video. Shot him and then watched him fall 40 yards from where I initially hit him. And then I lost my freaking mind. And I think I called everyone on my phone. Dan, you were one of the people I called. You weren't in town, so you weren't able to help me recover it. But you said a lot of really kind words and congrats and stuff. And was a long night getting that deer out of there. I always tell people like the most important part of my videos are the last 2 minutes. And it's tough because after you kill a deer, no one really watches. But
Yeah.
I talked about what it meant in that video to shoot the deer of a lifetime. And to me, the whole season, it was shooting that 12 point. It was shooting that really big buck. And that was going to be the deer of a lifetime because it was huge old mature buck. And I discovered that the people I was standing around, the people that were helping me drag that deer out, the family I got to bring that home to, the dog that got to hobble up there on 3 legs, my old childhood dog smelling that deer, that is what made that deer the deer of a lifetime. Like I had a lifetime of happiness and community surrounding me. And that is how you should define, your journey and your kills, by the memories and the people you bring to it, through that experience. And so that the whole last 2 minutes is basically speaking of the message that I learned in those hunts. And that was the most important thing from that deer. And that's actually the one right there right now.
Sure.
So yeah, it was a great experience.
That's awesome. You are very articulate and very impressive young man. I have to say that. Like,
Thank you.
It's very impressive, and it's great to see somebody like you. Like, we need you in this hunting community. Like what you're doing and the way you break down the analytics on different things. It's very evident you're an engineer. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And
that means the world to me.
No, I mean it. I mean that with all sincerity. Like you're doing what you're doing. Keep it up, and the future is very bright for you. To be 26 years old and have a grasp that you have right now, and obviously due in part to the knowledge that you've learned from Dan and the stuff that you've learned on your own and probably through others as well, is quite impressive. So congratulations. And
thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Like I said, I give all credit to, to God and the people that have brought me up in the outdoors and grew up watching Dan and a lot of other people too. And like, I wouldn't know anything without them. And I think I have a ton of a way to go, but that's the best part is I get to learn so much more about the outdoors. And I'm very fortunate to have all you guys around me to help guide me.
Right. And we're always learning, right? I mean, Dan, I think you probably still learn a few things from time to time, right?
Yeah. I mean, there was a couple of years ago when I saw this article and I read it, and I couldn't believe the stuff I was learning in that article. And there's a couple of things that really stuck out to me as like great ideas. I looked at the author and it was me like 20 years earlier. I learned a lot from that article.
Oh, that's great.
I was just taking a sip here.
I'm always learning.
Well, sometimes you forget
when
things
you
that
my age, you forget things too, but the thing about Jacob is he's like that engineer part of him mixed with the bullheaded get it done no matter what attitude he has is a combination that's deadly. I've been fortunate enough to spend some time with Jacob in a few different scenarios, like Nebraska, and watch the effort that guy puts into hunting. And you could literally not be a great hunter, and you'd still get it done occasionally by putting in the effort that he puts in. But if you combine that with skill, with learning, with the humbleness of being able to learn from others and learn from yourself. It's a deadly combination. I would imagine in years to come, you're going to see a lot from Jacob.
Yeah, it means the world to me, Dan. Like, I remember talking to my friends the day I was going to meet you. Like, I'm going to meet freaking Dan Infalt today. Like, I was like,
Hope you weren't too
freaking out.
disappointed.
Well, you're going to have a little bit. But I'm just kidding. But honestly, that I can't express how much that means to me to hear from you guys, and like, just, I don't know how I got so lucky to have the people I do around me, but and to be talking to you guys and presenting to an audience of people that's really intense about it too. And I'm endlessly thankful for it. Thank you so much.
Well, like I said, you have a bright future ahead of you in the world of hunting. I remember when I was 26 years old, and I don't think I had anywhere close. And I was obsessed with hunting back then too, right? But we were all, I think so much was learned through reading magazines and deciphering this article from this author, and that, like, there was a lot of repeating of the same information, but then there was also stuff that was contradicting of this article and this author and that, and it got to be a little bit overwhelming. And I think at the end of the day, you just got to get out there and do it. But if I knew what I knew now, or even had the amount of knowledge you have at 26, I mean, I would go back to it in a second, just in terms of being a hunter, right? I mean, now as a father, and that priorities, all those kinds of things change. And I'm still ate up with it, but not like I was when I was 26 to 36 years old, even, so while you're young, stay after it, and that, because, priorities change as you get older, and you just got married in that, and you're going to get the people asking those questions, like, how many kids you're going to have and stuff. So,
yeah.
But,
I welcome that, man. I'm going to have so much change in my life that I can't even pretend like I'm going to know, what's all going to happen. I'm going to go through a lot of stuff, and, I welcome that with open arms. I already know that I don't want to set an expectation for myself to kill like X amount of this size deer and whatnot. And honestly think if you put a number on what I might be capable of, I'm going to be far below that in reality. And I just think that's because I'm going to prioritize my family so much. Like, the value in these stories for me and these experiences for me is the people that I get to bring along, I'm blessed to have around me. And so I can see like my life trending a lot more towards getting people involved than doing it myself. And like, I'm itching to get Caitlin a deer. Like, I've been out for like 4 hunts this year, and half of them have been with her, and I've got plenty of deer I could go after right now, but I'd like much rather get one with her. And I was like, my buddy Cam, I got a video coming out of him shooting like a 150 something on a piece of public. And, he called me and I freaked out, and I'm like, Caitlin, if I'm sitting in a stand with you and you shoot a deer, like, I'm going to have to like bring a ratchet strap and strap myself to that tree, because I'm going to lose my mind. But I look forward to that so much. Those are going to be amazing years in my life.
Yeah. I mean, that, like I said, that's, it's extremely impressive that you have that mindset already, that you're putting things in perspective. And, I think so often we lose that as hunters. We're obsessed in that. And this is, and Dan, I'm looking at you here in that you are obsessed with it. You still are obsessed. That's never going to leave. Like, you are the hunting beast for a reason. You are you're an enigma. But I think the average hunter, and you're not the average hunter, you're, way beyond that. But for the average hunter, that want to emulate or try to be somebody they're not, there's sacrifices that come with that, and sometimes to a detriment. So to keep things in perspective and focus on what's most important in your life, and just enjoy hunting too, right? Like,
absolutely.
I think some guys, and I think there's been periods of time throughout my hunting career where I became too obsessed or didn't have my priorities in the right place. And I started to lose what I loved about hunting. And it's sometimes you need to kind of just rewind and reset and do it for the right reasons. Dan says this all the time. Do you remember the buck I shot last year? Nobody remembers what you killed last year, the year before that, or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's only really at the end of the day important to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Do it for all the right reasons, not the wrong reasons. So
You alluded to me being on the Okayest Hunter last week. I don't know if that was on air or not, but
no, it was before. But yeah, you were on.
yeah.
I caught a portion of it right before our show last Tuesday.
Yeah. So I go in depth into like why my channel's called The Wild Calling. And I was going to save that for when I started a podcast. But that we got a lot deeper than deer in that episode. And so like the back half of that is kind of where I tell that story. If you would like to know why I think the way I do,
Yeah,
Dan, I've
absolutely.
talked to you about it, on the way back from shows. But I mentioned that because Eric made a post a while ago, right along the lines of what you were just talking about, Scott, where he said like, it was a long post about being there for your kids and that, deer come and go. And I commented on it and, true story. My dad used to drive to high schools that their baseball fields or football fields and their stadiums for wrestling and stuff the day before competition. He'd drive up to 2 hours away the night before just so that he knew the route there. There was no Apple Maps, Google Maps, whatever, just so he knew the route there and he could envision like coaching our team to success in that day and like just make sure everything was ironed out. So we just had to get up in the morning, make sure our weight cut was on, and we could get there and succeed. And he also killed a crap ton of really good deer and has plenty in our basement. And he's also told me all those stories. And I commented that and I said, guess which one I remembered more as a kid? I remembered all the things that he did and being there for me. And that really struck a chord with Eric. And that's why, we started talking and eventually did the podcast together. And he started telling some about his story, which led to me telling mine. And I just don't think that's really a coincidence, and I'm very proud that our community so often is promoting being good fathers, good brothers, good husbands, and using both the good examples and the bad to kind of further us as human beings rather than just always trying to be better hunters and using hunting as a vehicle to get there.
Well said. Very well said. I think that's perfect. To be honest, like I've been, like I said multiple times now, I've been thoroughly impressed here with you being a guest on the show here tonight. I'm kind of blown away. So keep it up. Dan, any final thoughts for Jacob?
No, I appreciate you coming on the show and talking about the story. I hope it gets your channel a little attention. I think you deserve it. You're doing a good job. You're a great representative of the community.
Mm-hmm.
You always do everything respectful, and I just think that you're good for young people to look up to that are getting into hunting. Even more so than probably me, because I go off on like these belligerent deer hunts where I don't take care of my family stuff as much as you do. Hunting is who I am. It's hard for me to even be, in town or in a city or at a store or something. I just feel so uncomfortable around people.
Yeah,
feel better in the woods.
Yeah.
It's weird, but I really like what you're doing and how you're growing and the direction you're taking, and keep it up.
Thanks.
And don't let people put you down, because I'm going to tell you something. As you start to excel, you're going to see a lot of hate. People hate winners. They hate people who are doing good, and they want to put you down to make themselves feel better. And you got to get over that and just block, delete, gone with those type of people, and just worry about the people that care about you.
Yeah, that's some amazing advice that you've given me there, and to the people that are listening, that comes from context of conversations that Dan and I have had off air and stuff, and that's when I take a good step in that direction. Excuse me. That has been like the most positive thing in sustaining my journey with this and bring it to people. And yeah, I mean, those words, that means a lot to me, Dan, especially coming from you.
All right. Well, I think this is a good time to go ahead and wrap it up. Jacob, thanks a lot for coming on and telling the story. Thanks a lot for being an ambassador. Thanks a lot for doing what you did in that situation there and, reporting this to authorities. I think we need to be more vigilant in our surroundings and making sure that people are being held accountable for their actions. I mean, that's just the way it is. And again, like I said before, we're all guilty of making mistakes and stuff, and hopefully this gentleman has learned from his now, so.
Yeah.
Let's get you back on after you kill that target buck and have you a positive show.
Yeah, all these lessons, we just want to goof around and celebrate a deer getting shot. I think I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we can always go back to this here, and I promise you guys, it's really not. It's really not me. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Beast Report. I do believe Dan and I will be back next week, Tuesday. Now, bear in mind, we are in the meat and potatoes here of hunting season, so our times might be a little bit different. We might have to start a little bit later, but even if you miss the live show, you'll always be able to catch it on the YouTube channel. So we'll see you guys soon. Good luck to everybody out there whose season has started, and for those of you that season's just around the corner, we'll talk again real soon. Jacob, stick around so we can chat a little bit after the show here.
Cool.